It's that music. It's that time of the week. It's 8:30 on a Friday. It's Free Speech Friday's time. New pairing today. New pairing. My old boss at Radio Windy, 40 bloody years ago, turned real estate agent, colourful character, outspoken. Chris Gollins joins us from where today? Chris, the Wairarapa?
Sean.
Yeah, where are you? In the Wairarapa? At home? Where are you joining us from?
From home, Sean.
Okay, very good. And Mark Champion from deep down in Dunedin, I imagine a man who has watched events unfold this week and thought their history repeats again. How are you, Mark?
I'm good, thanks, Sean.
All right, now, have you two ever met personally or before?
I don't know whether I have. Yeah.
Okay, well, introduce yourselves.
Hello, Mark.
Let's get into it. Mark, I want to start with you. News Hub goes down, and now, of course, inevitably, we have the plucky bunch of senior overpaid journalists who say they're going to get together and come up with a wonderful plan to save the operation until they realise how much money they're going to lose in income, right?
Oh, well, look, you've got a feel for it, and we've all been in that situation, living year to year, day by day, on programs that will inevitably be canned or operations that will fall by the wayside. And so you've really got a feel for it, and you know you've got to take your head off to their chutzpah to try and make something work.
Really, but they won't, will they? It never works.
No, I don't think so. Especially if it's not, especially if it's free to air.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, free to air is going to go the same way as Blacksmiths and the Yellow Pages, I imagine.
Mm-hmm. Chris Gollins, do you think the rest of the country shares the mainstream media's distress at what has happened to News Hub, that they think democracy is going to fall and it is like a tragedy, a Greek tragedy unfolding in front of us?
Sean, I don't think that's the case for a minute. I think the increasingly a large number of New Zealanders, and I wouldn't say a majority, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is, no longer see mainstream media as a necessity of life. And I think that's that really is, the issue here with News Hub. But I think really what News Hub really probably were third in line. I think for the way the public have woken up to mainstream media, TV1 and Radio New Zealand are probably surviving on taxpayer life support. And the truth is, if they were totally independent and they had to stand on their own 2 feet, they would have fallen over long before TV3 and Media News Hub. I think my view is that Jacinda and her ministers and some of their lapdogs taught New Zealanders that television and the truth are no longer synonymous. And a great many New Zealanders have thrived without mainstream media, and advertisers have shifted their budgets accordingly. And that's just the reality of it. People no longer have confidence.
Yeah,
I agree entirely, Chris. I think actually the focus will now go on TVNZ, and already David Seymour has started circling around TVNZ because in the absence of a dividend, of course, that additional money was used to keep the organisation still reasonably fat and to compete against TV3. Now, that's no longer the case. The government will have its hand out for a dividend, and TVNZ will be the next one that will go through a period of attrition.
But how, guys, hang on, just before we get stuck into TVNZ, it's still doing its work. How can you criticise an organisation that yesterday ran a story with an opening paragraph like this? Kari Poata Māori from across the media sector have spoken out on the closure of News Hub, with many saying the proposed discontinuation of its news branch is one less media outlet where aspiring Māori journalists can grow. In a statement, Kawea Te Ronga Māori Journalist Association co-chairperson Rebecca Timutimu said News Hub's demise could further hinder an already struggling Māori media industry. There is TVNZ, right, supporting and promoting the rights of the common people, guys, so do not get down on them, Mark.
No, well, I'm somewhat embarrassed, Sean, to have criticised them.
Yeah, that is the whole bloody problem, isn't it, Mark? Stories like that?
Well, that's one of the problems, Sean. I don't know quite where you start. And look, these things can be fixed. I think we've talked before about rolling back the TVNZ board that Willie stacked before the election, and I think you've just got to start from basics. But I think a government with its hand out for a hard old dividend will focus their attention.
Yeah, okay, but let's talk about the landscape then. And Chris, it's really funny though, talking to you as well. You know, you were around and you worked for private radio, which started doing its own news and its own thing. And I'd say, you know, who've been successful? ZB's been successful, though I don't know that its news has.
Sean, I don't know. Success, I think, is perhaps not completely the right term. I mean, bear in mind that NZME made $12 million profit last year.
Yeah.
That's the Herald, News Talk, all the Herald's associated publications,
yeah.
$12 million profit, $200,000 a week. I mean, Sean, for an operation of that scale,
yeah,
that really is a knife edge. I mean, a lot of people would think $12 million is a lot, but when you look at the capital,
it's a lot more than I make a year, and it's more than it costs to run my entire organisation for a year. A lot more.
But if you look at that, you think, look, Discovery lost $34 million in New Zealand in 2022.
Yeah.
Their Warner Brothers shares have fallen 47% in the last 12 months. I mean, if NZME made $12 million, where's Stuff?
Yeah, and I guess, guys, that's the question we ask. Are they next, Mark?
That's the next one.
Yeah, you reckon?
Yeah. It's got to be because, you know, we don't know how it's being funded. We know it's not worth anything. And at the end of the day, it's not a charity. And I go back to Chris's point about $12 million for NZME. I mean, in terms of return on investment, it's lousy. It's worse than an airline.
Mm. So, guys, but I think you'd both agree, and you've both been journos in your time, and you've both seen the good and bad from the inside. We do need journalism and reportage in New Zealand and in any democracy. You guys aren't going to say that we don't need something.
No, and look, I think Winston Peters was extremely subtle, too subtle for the media, when he made the point that it was critical for a democracy, but he wasn't talking about what we'd lost. He was talking about the principle of an active, impartial media organisation, which he never bracketed that with the loss of TV3.
Yeah, Chris, we still need to have a media industry.
Oh, Sean, absolutely. And last night I had a long conversation with a good mate in Dunedin, and he's someone that worked with us as a journalist, and is quite a deep thinker. And he made a very good point that New Zealanders have been early adopters of technology that has sort of swept the world. We were quick with FPOS. We were one of the first to use cell phones on a sort of a daily basis. Barcode scanning. We have the highest per head internet use in the world, apparently.
Yep.
And the demise of large media organisations is not going to be unique to New Zealand. But look at the platform. What Peter was suggesting last night is that we are going to see the growth of small organisations that with limited capital can take advantage of the technology that is there and provide people with the sort of news that they choose to
I
to
said this
listen
to Mark Jennings yesterday. I'm an owner-operator, essentially. And I don't want to get huge and monolithic and big because I just said in the last half hour, I said my job is to listen to my audience, to make them listen to me, not to turn off my comment section, and to be specific and boutique in what I do. And be different.
Sean, you have to be very careful to make sure you don't alienate your audience. But look at Stuff. I mean, on a daily basis, they are printing newspapers, and bear in mind that most millennials have never held a newspaper.
Most of them have never watched a 6 o'clock news bulletin either. You know,
but Stuff every day are printing more stories, more opinion pieces on te reo indoctrination, on representative of an age that their audience, their subscribers generally don't understand and don't want to understand. So every day they are selling newspapers that further alienate their subscribers, and they wonder why they're failing.